let's move on and talk about the team that gave them a little bit of a threat in the NFC Championship game. Not too much, though, as they, Philly went by them by a margin of 32, 55-23. But look, up until that point, I mean, this team was on a fantastic playoff run, and that is the Washington Commanders. After probably like 6 to 7 years of like irrelevance outside of that 2020 season where they kind of made a fluke playoff run. They played in like a game, but after kind of being a bottom feeder in the NFL for several years, they came in with Jayden Daniels. They took down the Buccaneers, a Baker Mayfield-led Buccaneers team that was just fantastic. Then they took down the number 1 seed Detroit, 45-31. And then in the game against the Eagles, it kind of felt like they got in their own way in a lot of ways, especially on some of those 3 consecutive. I think it was 3 consecutive, right? Push attempts that resulted in penalties. They kind of crashed out a little bit. Yeah, but that happens with young teams. We see that in pretty much every sport, right? These young teams, they get to a certain point, and then their inexperience overshadows the talent that's on that team. But now they're coming back. They've had another full offseason to kind of learn from their mistakes. Jayden Daniels, he continues to develop. So for you in Washington, what is going to be the main focal point for this Commanders team?
I think tampering expectations. This was a good team last year. Do I think they were the 12-5 team that they ended up becoming at the end of the year? I believe they went 12-5, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong. 11-6, whatever they were. I don't think they were. The wins matched the talent that was on this team, and mainly because this defense was so damn bad. And I think, and this is why I brought it up. I didn't include Jayden Daniels or CJ Stroud in those top conversations, right? Because CJ Stroud, everyone and their mother said that was a top 5 rookie season, and he was already top 10 quarterback, maybe pushing top 5. And then this past season was under a lot of pressure consistently. His receivers weren't healthy all year long. The defense was better, but not as effective. Thank you. I am right, as always. Never wrong, just early. So with that point, with Jayden Daniels, we might see that sophomore slump drop off that we see with a lot of top ballot or top pedigree quarterbacks early on in their career, right? And it's not that, look, Jayden Daniels is incredibly talented, and my evaluation on him, even though I still had him as a top 50 player, was wrong, because there were things I saw in his college game that he was missing stuff that is heavily used in the NFL, namely throwing over the middle of the field at all levels, over the middle, short, deep, and middle, right? Or intermediate area. And there wasn't a whole lot of that on this tape. So I said, you know what? I don't know if he can do it, because I didn't see him do it. Lo and behold, he became one of the most accurate quarterbacks over the middle of the field this year, because that's where this offense was targeting defenses. And if you can hit over the middle of the field in the NFL, you're going to be a damn good quarterback for a long time. There are guys who do exclusively hit the outsides, like Russell Wilson, and has had a long and decent career, but that doesn't work for everyone. The data lies who can hit over the middle of the field. Jayden Daniels proved he can do that. I'll take the L. He's a good quarterback. But I think we might see a drop in play from him this year, especially with the Terry McLaurin talks that we're having, right? Like, Is he going to get extended? Is he going to get traded? More often than not, and this is the vast majority of the time, guys that take this route of, I want to trade, they get a deal 2 or 3 weeks later, if not sooner, right? He's going to get extended. But that's still time he's missing in camp, building that relationship with Jayden Daniels. That's other guys who are playing out of their normal wide receiver position, because you have to assume he's not going to be on the roster. So now you have guys who normally are Z playing the X position, guys who were normally in the slot playing Z, guys that aren't normally getting snaps. Like, it messes with the mojo, right? So I think, number one, that's going to be the biggest hang up. Number two, now teams have a full year of NFL film on him, and they've been reviewing it since January. They know what they want to do to attack Jayden Daniels and get him off platform and off pressure. And I think what we saw was when he went and played these tougher defenses, especially the Eagles the second time around when Jalen Hurts didn't get hurt in the very early stages of the game. He struggled, especially when they were just sitting back in quarters and saying, you need to read this out and you need to figure it out, and our pass rush is going to get to you before you have a chance to. We saw that play drop down, and he struggled heavily in that first half against the Eagles. He did great against the Lions because all they were running was man coverage, and they had the weapons to get past man coverage. Teams will now say, okay, we're going to play more zone against these guys, which is also going to help them keeping him in the pocket because now their eyes aren't on the receivers, they're on the quarterback. So they'll react to him running faster. So I think more teams are going to play zone against this team than they did last year. And I think that's where, not where he's going to struggle against, but that's where the pitfalls of this offense are going to start to come through. And teams will start blitzing with zone. Teams will start running more stunts with zone. And that's what's going to bring him back a little bit. And that's what's going to limit this Commanders team from doing as well as they were last year. And the bigger piece of that is the defense. There's more question marks on defense this year than last year. And that defense was, on paper, worse. They bring in Von Miller, who is not Von Miller anymore. He is a shell of himself, let alone a shell of any rotational pass rusher in the NFL. They bring in Marshawn Lattimore, but what the hell are they doing with the safety group? They are still leaning on Bobby Wagner, who a lot of people still consider top 10, but he's one of the biggest liabilities in coverage as a linebacker in the NFL. Frankie Louvu didn't take that step that I thought he was going to take. So it's like, what is this defense's identity? And can this offense overcome everyone having more film and more preparation against Jayden Daniels? I'm not sure. I don't think they're going to be as good as last year. And I think the record may not totally reflect that. They may go 10-7 or 11-6. So people say, oh, they lost 2 gimme games. But I think from an efficiency standpoint, both sides of the football are going to be worse off.
Yeah. One question for you to offer maybe a little bit of a bright spot for Commanders fans.
Yeah.
Because, I wouldn't say your evaluation there was negative. It's just a little foreboding of not even a potential of a little bit of a drop off, but also just, the worst thing as a fan, in my opinion, is when you have a team that kind of has a breakout season, and then what happens is what you just described is probably going to happen for Commanders' opponents is they're going to get better along with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they know how you work now, and so it's going to be tougher for you to do the things that made you so great successful. Yeah. But if I can offer a bright spot to Commanders fans, if we're looking at their schedule and their upcoming opponents based on their pass defense from 2024.
Yeah.
This is based on their EPA / dropback rate, when they face each other.
Yeah, and this was based on where they were last year when they played these guys. So this isn't looking forward for 2025. This is just based on 2024 when they played them and the type of defenses Jayden Daniels saw, right? Yeah. That's where this lies. So finish your question. I just wanted to preface that.
So I'm just curious, as the schedule went on last year, though, you saw a little bit of an improvement. I mean, they were going up against, weaker teams in the beginning of the season. And then they were kind of, when they hit that really strong pocket, against the Bears, the Steelers, the Eagles, they were going up against successful pass defenses and they were winning games.
Yes.
So for you, I mean, especially now as the season goes on, you mentioned the struggles with Terry McLaurin. So in training camp, but that will kind of get brushed off as the season goes on. If they get off to a rough start, how much do you feel like fans should be confident that they'll kind of pick it back up and still get into the playoffs?
Number one answer is Jayden Daniels because he's still a hell of an athlete. He can run the shit out of the ball. He has a really good deep ball, right? So if they start to hit bumps in the road, I think the Commanders and the fans can lean on Jayden to lead this team because he did it last year, obviously. Like, even with all the question marks, like Cliff Kingsbury coming back as an OC after running some inefficient offenses with the Cardinals and USC taking back offensively his 1 year there. Then you look at, can this offensive line fit the bill? Can this defense show up to play? Can Dan Quinn be a good head coach and rewrite the ship and not have what happened with the Cowboys happen here, right? Like, that's That's what he has to. That's what they had to work through last year, and they overcame all of that, right? And so now they have that identity of Jayden Daniels is a dog, and we can lean on him to win games. The defense does not have to be nearly as good as we want it to be in order to compete. The offensive line exceeded expectations, right? So I think even with all the question marks about, okay, Terry McLaurin, what's his deal? Is he going to re-sign or is he going to get traded? This defense improved and also didn't improve on paper, but there's still a lot of question marks. Can they come to the plate again? And can Dan Quinn out-scheme other people? Can this run game be effective at all? Can it be? And we'll get into that with my dark horse candidate later on. But I think with who Jayden Daniels played last year and did well against some good defenses, did well against bad defense, and had some bad games against good defenses and had bad games against bad ones, he has shown the normal ebbs and flows of an NFL quarterback. And I think now with a year under his belt and being more prepared to see different defenses, which he's going to see this year because teams are going to run a hell of a lot more zone than they did man against them last year, he's going to have to show up and step up to the plate. Now, still another big question mark for me is Cliff Kingsbury was super creative and innovative his first 2 years with the Cardinals. After that, teams knew how to play Kyler Murray, so the offense got a lot more horizontal and it wasn't as explosive. Is that going to happen with Cliff? Because they're running zone, they're not going to be able to hit them deep nearly as much as they did when they played when defenses played man against them. So is he going to keep running those same style plays and keep the pressure on the defense, or is he going to revert to being horizontal and now the defense is running downhill the whole game and you don't have an offense? I hope that's not the case because I do like Cliff. I think he's a good OC, and that was proven last year. They were one of the most efficient offenses in the league in his first year as an exclusive OC. So I think it's a lot of similar questions, but I think it's now instead of, okay, this is going to be a rebuilding year. Now the expectation is playoffs. Now Jayden Daniels needs to step up once again. And that's going to be the positive highlight is that you have a great quarterback like him. And number two, a lot of the things that were question marks last year ended up working themselves out. And that could again happen this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to get into their dark horse. A really interesting dark horse candidate that you picked, especially because, his area of expertise is something where Washington excelled in last year, and that's rushing. They were third in the league in overall rush yards, right behind the Ravens and the Eagles in 2024 in the regular season. But your dark horse is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the running back. You really love his tape in camp. You loved when he played at New Mexico. What can you tell us about this guy? Because, he's not really a name that you hear a lot in upcoming players. But for you, what did you like from this guy's tape?
He is just so damn elusive for his size. And just to give a brief overview about Ja'Cory, so he started, I want to say it was at Alabama he got a start. It was either Alabama or Alabama State, one of the two, with big difference between them, but still. So he his freshman year, he knew he was going to transfer out. So he was giving his number to one of the other freshmen that he knew was going to stay. So he gave them his number. As it was never recorded, and this was before the season even started. He never played in the number that was listed on his roster. So when they looked at the tape, they said, "Oh, well, and he was redshirted that year." So Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was redshirted. But when they looked at the number and then they saw the number was playing in games, they said, well, you obviously played in games. So even though it says you're redshirted, we saw you playing games, even though it wasn't him. How this even happened and became a thing is beyond me, but essentially lost his red shirt and only played one game his senior year when he was at Arizona. And he had a damn good game. So he can't play his senior year and he declares for the draft. Gets invited to the Shrine Bowl, wins Shrine Bowl MVP. Thank you, Alabama State, New Mexico, and then Arizona. Thank you. So, and again, because it's Alabama State, they're not going to really pay that much attention and they're not going to care about it as much as they would in SEC school. Sorry, that's just the reality of the NCAA. They're not a well-run machine, especially for the FCS and lower programs. So he goes to New Mexico, looks really good in New Mexico, transfers to Arizona, lights it up his first game. Gets suspended for the rest of the year. He says, screw it, I'm just going to go prepare for the draft. goes to the Shrine Bowl, does great there. It's his hands, his elusiveness. He's a bigger bodied back than most other running backs in the NFL. Not most of the other running backs, but the majority, because now running backs are like 200, 210. He's sitting around 215, I want to say. So he can run through you, run around you. He's got great speed, great in, like skills as a pass catcher. And that's something that, like, even as good as this rush offense was last year, they were missing the explosive element. And that's because Brian Robinson is a downhill running back. Austin Eckler is their receiving back and doesn't really have the burst that he used to. So you bring in a bursty guy who can weave between tackles and hit a breakaway on the outside on a toss or an outside zone like Jacory, that opens up the offense. So I think he's not going to get a lot of reps early on his rookie year, but I think in the back half of his rookie year, especially if there's an injury, he's going to be the guy getting the bulk of carries. And not that he's going to get 20 carries a game, but I think he'll get 12 to 15, and they're all going to be meaningful and impactful, and they're going to drive this offense. And I think if this was a guy who was able to play at Arizona, we're looking at someone who's a day 2 pick. I don't think he's in the same class as Ashton Genty, Travion Henderson, Omarion Hampton. I don't think he's at that level, but he was definitely, I thought he was better than Caleb Johnson. I thought he was better than Devin Neal, DJ Giddens, Damian Martinez, a lot of other good running backs in this class that I really liked. I thought he was better than them. And it sucked that we were robbed of a really good senior season because it looked like he was going to pop off. And if the Shrine Bowl is any case, he's going against the best players in the country that are going to the draft, and he won the Shrine Bowl MVP for someone that didn't play any college football his senior year. That speaks volumes to me.
And so the burning question for the Washington Commanders, was last season a fluke? Obviously, we cannot say yes or no. It was a fluke or it wasn't a fluke because it is August 10th when we're recording this. Oh. But I guess the better burning question is, can the Commanders prove that last season was not a fluke by their play in 2025?
Yes, I absolutely believe they can prove that it was not a fluke. Will that come to fruition? Obviously, we'll wait and see. But if Jayden Daniels takes a step forward and can prove he can beat more of these zone-heavy teams and match-heavy teams, if the run offense can be, more dynamic rather than totally being dominant and be more dynamic and add another layer to the run offense, I think that's a good starting point. The offensive line needs to be on par with where they were last year, and the defense needs to be better. And if those, like I said earlier, if 2 of those 4 things happen, I think we're going to be looking at a better team than last year, and it's not going to be a fluke. The record might not show that, but I think they can be a better team in total standpoint rather than record, be better. But I think there's still the amount of question marks is the same as last year, and I don't think that naturally bodes well for success in repeated success. Yep. So I think they will take a step back, but I still think they can be a playoff team in 2025.